All right, Mitch, should we get into the Class 2A field? We got the Farmington Farmers here,
Yeah.
our area, getting the win. The number 1 seed moving on. Farmington wins 42-7 over Dwight Garner South Wilmington. The Farmers advance to the state semifinals for the first time in school history. They go on the road and they leave no doubt in this one. We thought this had a chance to be kind of a runaway game, and Farmington went out and proved it. They won this one handily.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember on last week's show how public we were about that, but yeah, we thought that this could happen.
Yeah.
I thought this was a great matchup for Farmington. Believe they are healthy now, so was able to catch some of this game in the midst of all the other games. But once I saw what the score was in the first half, truthfully, didn't watch a whole lot of it. So,
Yeah.
but they put on a show. They did what Farmington has done a lot this season. Logan Nutt, 125 yards and 3 touchdowns. Noah Fleming had a score as well with 58 yards. And again, they built that lead up early and often, led 30-0 at the break. Lane Wheelwright, great game for him, 16 for 23 passing, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 to Landon Crawford, 1 to Boston Smith. But it was Carter Lambin getting most of the targets here, 9 passes for 122 yards. So great game for Lambin. And Greg, if you can believe it, blocked another kick.
So I liked your response to Coach Vallis reached out to us on X, which he does about once a week, gets us some talking points. But I love that he sent us the, message that Lambin had another blocked punt. And your response was, I'm more surprised when he doesn't block a punt.
Right. Yeah. I'm wondering what went wrong, or if the tean punted at all, if he doesn't block one. So, hey, that's an asset to have. Right. I can't remember how many he has now in the past 2 years, but always something that you got to be accounting for. Certainly, maybe didn't play as huge of an impact. I'm talking about just that blocked kick in this game, but in a closer game when he pulls off something like that, that's certainly a card in your back pocket that you like to have.
Yeah. And all that kind of speaks as well to the Farmer defense. They've shined all season, but they've really turned it up in the playoffs here. Only allowed 17 points in the postseason. So really great effort from them. They shut down this Dwight rushing attack. Jared Fauser has been making plays all over the field. He had a game-clinching interception in the round 2 win over Rock Ridge. They'll need to continue that against the 6th seed in Chicago Christian. They're also making their first appearance in the state semifinals in school history. Mitch, I'll be honest, this is a team that, obviously we're not used to talking about them this time of year, but really we're not used to talking about them a whole lot at all. I wasn't sure they'd make it this far. Here they are.
Yeah, and it won't be the first team from the LLC that they've played in the playoffs. If you remember, they beat Illini West in the opening round.
Oh, there you go. Yep.
This will be fun. I think these two teams match up really, really well with one another. It should be a really fun quarterback matchup. They've got a quarterback named Christian Flutman. Finished 10 of 15 passing for 146 yards and 3 touchdowns. Had a 69-yard touchdown run as well in their quarterfinal win. This is a guy who's played 4 years on varsity. He's started for 3 years for this Knights team. Really good defender. He's got 7 interceptions. So, Wheelwright will have to be keeping him in consideration, throwing that side of the field. But more importantly, I think the key to this game will be if the Farmers can really stop Brock Sperling. He's a lineman on both sides of the ball for the Knights, an IHSFCA All-State selection. 34 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks on the season. So that Farmington O-line has been terrific all year. Really going to have to maybe step it up a notch to keep him in check, keep Wheelwright in the pocket. Obviously, if he gets out of the pocket, he's fine. But make sure he has enough time to make the plays that they'll need to win this game. One more name, Kenny Jager is an honorable mention All-State selection as well. Was able to watch kind of his clips from the BHRA game. He had 140 yards against them. He had 182 yards against Tri-Valley the week before. He was their conference offensive MVP in the regular season. So Again, I think these two teams look really, really similar in terms of how their offense runs. Um, Chicago Christian runs a lot out of the pistol formation with Flutman and Jaeger behind him, but they're primarily out of shotgun regardless. So these two teams should look very, very similar on both sides of the ball. Should be a great game. Um, Personally, I was not impressed with BHRA in the quarterfinals. Um, and so the way that Farmington has played since really halftime of the DMAC game, right, where they maybe figured some things out, they've been really untouchable. Impressive win against Rock Ridge. Really took care of an upstart Dwight team. I'm calling it, Greg. I like the Farmers. I like the Farmers here. I think their defense is going to win them this game. I think Wheelwright's going to play well, and I have full confidence that they will be at least one team that we're covering next Friday.
Yeah, I think I'm in lockstep with you on that. I like Farmington, and I think what kind of you mentioned the defense, but I think what separates it for me is, has this Chicago Christian team faced an offense with someone like Lane Wheelwright? You know what I mean? Like the way he can kind of attack you on the ground or through the air. And I think that as the season goes along, you've really seen that this Farmers offense has multiple weapons at wide receiver. Multiple kids are ready to catch the passes and ready to find ready to get the open route and be there to make a play. So I think that's a big thing for me. And but they're going to have to, come up with some answers here for the names you've referenced here. Chicago Christian, they have talent, and this is a team that is really riding a lot of momentum here. Same as Farmington, right? Neither team has been this far, so there's a ton of excitement going into it for both schools.
Yeah, their only blemish on the year was a loss to Wheaton Academy in week 3, and that was a team that went into, I think, the second round of the playoffs this year in a 4A program. So they've played some teams. There's no doubt about that. Have they? And I guess I thought that going into the playoffs too. They took care of Illini West, had a close win against a good Tri-Valley team, and then this win against BHRA, which again I have my own thoughts on BHRA, but yeah, I don't know that they have. They look fun on film. I think I saw something about their head coach CJ Cesario had pneumonia all week. Continued and slept in his office or something because he didn't want to get anybody sick. So there's a football guy for you. But yeah, impressed with this program. They were 5-5 last year, so they've really made a nice turnaround. So I don't want to hark on them by any means. I just think that they I should say that Farmington matches up with them really, really well. The way that Farmington's defense is playing, I think will shut down their weapons. And again, I hope we're talking about a Farmington team in Bloomington.
Yeah. Getting back to real quick when I said, have they seen, an athlete like Lane Wheelwright? I think it's fair to mention, their schedule, kind of look at some of their opponents. Chicago Hope this year, who we saw last year. Now, not the same team as they were a year ago, but still, they got a win over Chicago Hope. Bishop McNamara team, obviously, a team that we've called out in the playoffs over the last few years. Not quite the same this year, but they still got the win there. They got the win over Aurora Christian, who was a good team in the 1A field. So, yes, they have seen some, some names, some teams that we're familiar with. Whether it's the same kind of program this year as they have been in years past, who knows? But just something to point out there as far as some of the matchups they've seen over the years.
Yeah, just if you just looked on paper, right? They definitely score points, but they also allow some points. They've allowed at least 2 scores in each of their last 4 games. And I think that's where it plays into Farmington's hands a little bit. This is going to be a really good Farmers offense come into play and a stout defense to go with it. So should be a fun game. I think both teams match up really well, but give me the Farmers in this one.
Before we wrap up the conversation, I do actually know a Chicago Christian alum.
Okay.
So shout out to Dan Lindblom. He's a trainer at the gym that my wife and my son go to. Okay. And so I've been talking to him throughout the season. And he was, he was excited about him as they were racking up the wins throughout the regular season. And now he's been really excited as the playoffs move along. He was really hoping that they were going to run into Rock Ridge because he knows, being in the Quad Cities area, he knows some Rock Ridge people. But that didn't play out. But either way, his Chicago Christian Knights here are in the, state semifinals. So just wanted to give a quick shout out.
Yeah, and regardless of what happens in this game, we'll have a first-time state finalists coming out of the North because both of these teams making their first appearance in the semifinals, as I think you mentioned, will most likely go up against Maroa Forsyth. I will give them the edge in that Johnson City game in the other semifinal. So there's a contrast, right? A perennial state champion or runner-up, or at least playing for the state championship, and Maroa Forsyth going up against a first-timer. So it'd be a fun matchup no matter what, but just a fun kind of contrast of the fun that the playoffs can bring.
Yeah, let's talk real quick about, did you follow along with that Maroa Forsyth Quincy Notre Dame game? So yeah, Maroa Forsyth was, I believe, were they up 14-0 in that one?
And I believe it was. And then Quincy rattled off 21 straight.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And then Maroa Forsyth scored late in the game, went for 2 and got it. Man, you got to make those gutsy calls this late in the year. And they pulled it off. They get the win. So it's going to be Maroa Forsyth on the road at Johnston City, a team I used to cover way back in my college days when I was down in Carbondale covering local sports down there. So the Johnston City Indians having a great season at 11-1. But yeah, we've kind of circled it throughout the playoffs. I thought the winner of that Maroa Forsyth Quincy Notre Dame game kind of had the upper hand to get into the state finals. We'll see if it plays out that way. But yeah, either way, good luck to the Farmington Farmers. And I hope Coach Vallis is there on the sidelines. I hope we're there talking to him, at Hancock Stadium. That would be a ton of fun.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about the 1A games here in a minute with Kyle, but boy, the chances are non-zero that we cover back-to-back games on Friday from the sidelines. So by the time that's over, I'll probably be an icicle and want to be in the press box as soon as possible. But I will take that, with, being able to cover 2 teams. The chances of doing that are exciting to think about. So, but not getting ahead of ourselves whatsoever. Looking forward to this game, Chicago Christian and Farmington, and 2:00 on Saturday. I'll definitely be tuned into that.
Awesome. Well, let's take a quick break to thank some sponsors, and then we'll bring in Kyle Kampmeyer from NUICfootball.com, and we'll break down Class 1A and what we saw there.